fuck are you doing? Hey. Wait.
Welcome to the Horror Movie Showdown, episode 78. Today I will be reviewing both the original and the remake of the Slumber Party Massacre. The original is a bit of a cult classic, as it is a distilled version of 80s slasher movies, just with no plot, and it only really focuses on scantily clad girls and a lot of kills. The remake is supposedly a feminist reimagination of that movie, but after reviewing the feminist remake of Wrong Turn back in episode 63, I have quite low expectations for this one. But let's dive in anyways. The remake starts out in the 90s, where a girl fetches some beers for their slumber party. And right away it is evident that this movie is super low budget and that guys are assholes.
Go back to whatever you're doing in there, ho!
2 minutes in and we already have our first fake scare, and a second later we have our mature rating. So what else would girls do at a slumber party than to dance? You notice right away that the sexy pajamas of 80s movies have been replaced with boring old jammies, but they're enough for this nasty guy to get going. Soon after we have our first kill, and it seems like this is one of those movies that gets straight to the point, to let the viewers know that they mean business, just to restart the movie a few minutes later with a new group of people. The kills unfortunately seem quite weak. Wow, I came to that conclusion a bit too early. Maybe this movie won't be that bad after all. So only Trish survives the driller killer, and we forward until today, where her daughter Dana is heading on a trip to have a slumber party. What could go wrong?
Dana, I know you know this, but I just have to say it. Don't tell strangers where you're going.
Ooh, so one of the girl's little sister, Alex, with an eye, has snuck into the back seat.
You guys are talking about doing drugs, aren't you?
Wow, she is really annoying. Anyways, on with it. So at the gas station, their car breaks down, and no amount of titties can help them get it fixed immediately.
I don't see how that's gonna help.
And soon after, the movie turns from a soft R into a hard R. Stranded in the middle of nowhere, the girls decide to find a new location for their slumber party, and it is the best kind of place. An abandoned, creepy house.
I'm not getting any signal.
And there we have it. The scene that is mandatory in all modern horror movies. It seems that slumber parties haven't changed much from the 90s till now, as it yet again is all about the dancing. At least it is not TikTok dancing. And yet again we have a lurker who is also possibly a killer. And this is confirmed by Alex, who knows an awful lot about the driller killer.
A bunch of kids in the 90s were murdered by this dude, Russ Thorne, and their car broke down as they got here.
And this is where the movie's huge twist is revealed. The girls are there to kill the driller killer. From here on, the movie turns all meta and self-aware, as it is custom for modern horror movies. I wonder if the younger crowd actually enjoys these kind of meta movies. So the feminist director has the guys tripping when they try to outrun the killer, and she has them taking sexy showers and dancing. Swapping gender roles is often funny, but let's see on the scoreboard if it worked for or against this remake. The movie has 10 great and bloody kills. The movie has a few tense moments, but after it goes full meta, it completely loses its scariness. It gets a scariness score of 2. The movie gets a nudity score of 3. But in this movie it is solely because of topless guys. That is a bit refreshing. Overall the movie is almost okay. I love the idea of exploring how girls and guys would react in similar situations. A bit like they did it in Hostel 1 and 2. But for me, this movie at times felt like it had been stitched together of funny scenes from a feminist brainstorming session. And because of this, the movie definitely has some major pacing problems, and it was hard to take the serious scene seriously when you have just watched some weird sarcastic scene prior. Also, several of the jokes felt flat, like when the guys referred to each other as Guy 1, 2 and 3, to show how flat female characters often are portrayed in horror movies.
Guy 2, are you okay? Guy 2?
The kills were great, a few of the jokes worked, but overall it was too meta for my taste. It gets a score of 3. Now let's explore if the original movie contained enough toxic masculinity to mandate this feminist remake.
You should not go with them.
Yeah, I know, but my toxic masculinity is kind of forcing me into it.
It may come as a surprise to you that the original movie was actually written by a feminist as a parody on the slasher genre, but against her will it was shot as a straightforward horror movie. Maybe this is the reason for the remake. 5 seconds into the original, and it is already more scary than the remake. There's just something creepy about those 80s horror movie soundtracks. And 2 minutes into the movie, we get our R rating. We follow the 18-year-old Trish, who has now become an adult, and we know so because she throws out all of her old toys. Isn't that a bit late for that?
Mom, I'm 18 years old, remember? You will always be my baby.
As her parents will be out of town for the weekend, she has planned an all-girls slumber party. Every teenage boy's fantasy. But before we get to all of that, we need a bit of exposition. We're introduced to some teenage boys trying to pick up a phone lady. And we're introduced to the killer and his giant drill. At gym the girls have just finished playing basketball, and is there any better way to introduce female characters than to show them naked in the showers? Most teenage boys of the 80s wouldn't think so, as there was no internet back then. After everyone have left school, one girl stays behind to pick up a book, leaving her all alone with the killer. It is pretty obvious what this giant drill is supposed to represent. With another kill added to the list, it is finally time for the slumber party. Well, almost.
Let's go by and scare the girls tonight.
But we're not invited.
Just a baby scare. I mean, you know how girls love to scream.
Now we get to the slumber party, which of course involves some mowie.
Cast your eyes on this. Mowie wowie. 100% seedless prime bud.
The movie is pretty straightforward, and we get the usual fake scares. One of the girls enjoys a bit of the Playgirl magazine with the always sexy Sylvester Stallone. The guys show up, the phone lines are cut, and the killing escalates. But let's see if the movie has any bite to it on the scoreboard.
I feel better already, really I do.
The movie has one more kill than the remake, but they're not quite as brutal or interesting. It is in the nudity department this movie shines, with too many topless and bottomless scenes to count. I really doubt that girls are this naked at real slumber parties. It gets a nudity score of 8. The most scary part about this movie is the creepy sneaky neighbor who keeps popping up at random places. It gets a scariness score of 4. Overall, the movie was slightly better than the remake, and it joins the other guilty pleasure slashers with a score of 4. It is a bit surprising that anyone decided to remake this movie, as what makes this movie fun to watch is mostly its 80s-ness and the pretty girls. I wouldn't recommend the remake for sure, though it has a few nods to the super cult Slumber Party Massacre too. And I would only recommend the original to people who enjoy a bit of 80s nudity and to have a few beers while watching movies. My younger teenage self loved this movie.
All of you are very pretty.
Please don't do this.
I love you.
But unfortunately, it hasn't stood the test of time. But that's all for this video, so thank you for watching and I will catch you later.